This video is a guide on how to gear for Mother Shahraz, really in anticipation in either a night 2 or week 2 kill, before a lot of the crafted pieces are going to be available, and without having to equip or farm a lot of the green shadow resistance gear. Okay, so for Mother Shahraz, really the minimum shadow resistance you want to have for the fight unbuffed is 174 shadow resistance. And there's other videos on why that's the case. But that's really what the goal we're going to be going for. And I'm going to use my warlock as an example of how to do that. So in my case, my warlock, I started raiding with him probably halfway through tier 5. So he's pretty decently geared, but not incredible. He's got 4-piece tier 5 and some of the nice pieces from Kara in tier 4. But he's not best in slot by any means. However, I have been saving just past gear I've had, really in anticipation of plugging those gear in certain situations, and this is a great time to do so. So, uh, really, the first piece that we want to use in our gear set is this neck piece, and this is called the Medallion of Karabor. And no one has this yet. But this is the neck piece that you'll get from the Black Temple Attunement. So after we kill Rage, we'll turn in that quest. There'll be another quest that follows up from that, and afterwards you'll get this item, the Medallion of Karabor. Has a really good amount of stamina and has 40 shadow resist. The other piece that everyone should use, and we've spent a lot of time farming this, is the crafted back piece. And this is the only crafted piece we're going to use. It's called Knight's End. This is a new tailoring pattern that's coming out. And the reason this is the one we're getting is because it's the fewest number of Hearts of Darkness to craft. It's only 1 Heart of Darkness to craft. Quite a few primals altogether and some large prismatics for the enchant. But we can farm all that up in anticipation. Real nice cloak. Also has 40 shadow resistance, and the enchant here comes with greater shadow resist, 15 shadow resistance. So if you just look at these 2 pieces alone, the neck and the cloak with the shadow resistance enchant, we're already at 95 shadow resistance. So we're already over halfway to our 174 goal. Now I'd argue the next best piece or next best thing to add is the head enchant. There is a head enchant from Lower City, Glyph of Shadow Warding. Just requires honor, so everyone should probably have that. This gives 20 shadow resistance. Okay, good one to have here. Now this is where things get fun to play around with, because you probably don't want to enchant your currently best helm with shadow resist, right? You want to keep your DP or DPS or healing enchant on that. So I'm using the tier 5 helm, but I've kept my tier 4 helm, and obviously tier 5 is a little better than tier 4. But this is a reasonable exchange for an item. And particularly for warlocks, some warlocks even like to have 2-piece tier 4. So if we just if we enchant that helm and kind of look at it, we're already at 115 shadow resistance. And this is really how I would start building this set. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to use this Void Sphere gem as replacement gems for our normal gem set. And now again, you don't want to be using kind of your new gear or your best gear replacing this. You want to look for some older gear you might have laying around, particularly ones that have a lot of gem slots. And I've kept both my my tier 4 shoulders and chest, and same thing for tier 5 as well. Both of these have the shoulders have 2 gem slots, and the chest has 4 gem slots. And both aren't bad, pretty decent. Slight downgrades, but it's not something that's going to gimp you totally. Obviously, it's not a green piece. And you can just put void spheres in each of these gem slots. So we do that. I put 2 in the shoulders, and then 3 in each of the chest ones. Okay, so there we go. So with this setup, I have 8 shadow resistance on my shoulders and now 12 on my chest piece. So the other pieces you want to look out for are just random pieces, maybe slight downgrades that have a lot of gem slots. So as a caster DPS, I upgraded my spell strike pants to my tier 5, but I still kept my spell strike pants in my bags, which are nice. They have 3 gem slots, so I could take those. And it's really just a slight downgrade in between spell strike and tier 5. But you can, again, same thing, put some void gems in here. So there's going to be, as well, there's also going to be some kind of random pieces that normally you would really never want. So that could be valuable for Mother. So I'm using Belt of Blasting, as probably most casters are. A couple weeks ago, I picked up this Chord of Screaming Terrors, kind of anticipation of this fight. Obviously, in terms of DPS stats, worse than Belt of Blasting, but it has 34 stam, whereas the belt has 0. And nicely, it has 2 gem slots in there. So I could take that belt. Again, it's a slight downgrade, but in terms of DPS, but maybe better overall in terms of, and certainly better overall in terms of survival for that fight. And then put 2 void spheres in those gem slots. Okay. So the other way to gain, and different classes, and depending on what gear you have laying around, you might be in a different position. Maybe you have a gloves that have a lot of gem slots that you want to put some. You can put these void spheres in. It's going to be very dependent on what gear you have and what class you are, and so on. But the other way to gain shadow resist without buying any shadow protection gear is this shadow armor kit. So this goes on either chest, legs, hands, or feet, and it gives you 8 shadow resistance. Now this is a good time to talk about the trade-off between different either gear or different stats. So as a warlock, so if on Shahraz, we'll use this void sphere as a gem, but as a warlock, the best gem arguably is a rune living ruby. So when I exchange out a rune living ruby for a void sphere, I'm exchanging 9 spell damage for 4 shadow resist. Okay. So equivalently, right, if I look at the shadow armor kit, this is 8 shadow resist. So that's basically the equivalent of 9 times 2 or 18 spell power in terms if I just exchange some gems around. So we have this kind of relationship between 4 resist for 9 spell power. That's why you can see like things like the Medallion of Caribor, right? So this is 40 shadow resistance. That in terms of like gem equivalent, that's the equivalent of 90 spell power, right? Which would be awesome for a neck piece. That's why this neck piece is really good. And the cloak, right? The cloak is 55 total shadow resistance, right? So that's something in the neighborhood of like 120 to 100, yeah, 120 or so different, 120 spell power. So in what this gives you for shadow resistance is excellent. But where this comes in with the shadow armor kit, right? So 8 spell power or 8 shadow resistance is about the equivalent of 18 for a warlock, about 18 spell power. So if we're just looking at where we would want to put this, if we look at our chest piece, so for my warlock, I'm using 150 health. Some people might use 6 stats. That's actually a really good trade-off, trading 6 stats or 150 health for 8 shadow resistance. So I might go into my helm or my chest piece and put on that shadow armor kit. This would be a good exchange to do. However, right, so the shadow armor kit can also go on your legs, but normally your leg enchant has 35 spell damage and 20 stam. This is way better than the shadow resistance you get from that armor kit. So I would not use it on your leg enchant. I would use your normal spell damage leg enchant. There are hands is kind of so hands enchant normally you're running 20 spell damage. So this is actually a little worse than a gem, right? So if your decision is between a shadow armor kit on your hands and gem swapping, the gems are actually a little better than the shadow armor kit on your hands. But the shadow armor kit is very good on your feet, right? So feet, depending on what you use, I have vitality on here, which is just MP5, and HP5 isn't very good. So I could take an old piece of gear I have sitting around. Boots of Shifting Nightmare also has a lot of spell hits, something that I've lost a lot by putting some shadow resistance gear on. So I could take that Boots of Shifting Nightmare and throw the shadow armor kit on those. That would be a good trade-off to do. Okay. As I look through this now, I haven't kind of slight downgrades on some items. Exchange on those old items. I swapped out gems for these void spheres, and I'm sitting here. I'm at 171 shadow resist, right? So the way to get that is I just need 3 more to get a 174, so I can just go into this helm and I'll put a void sphere into that slot. And for all these other pieces, I can just wear exactly what I'm wearing for my normal DPS set. So only some slight downgrades. Kind of importantly, getting the medallion in the neck, the crafted back. But otherwise, just taking some pieces that I used to wear or that I could be good in one situation or other, but I don't normally wear them, and resocketing them with appropriate gems and a couple armor kits as it makes sense. And bam, we're there, 175. So we should be easily able to meet that requirement. We haven't had to buy any shadow protection gear to make it possible. Yeah, pretty good.